What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my quick and simple recipe for these hot cross buns. Now I'm telling you guys, these are some of the softest and most flavorful hot cross buns that you will ever make. I know Easter is not complete in many households without hot cross buns, so I hope I delivered on this recipe and I hope you guys give it a try. Now in my recipe, I'm putting a little variation on it. I remember I shared it about 2 years ago, closer to when I first started the channel, and recently a lot of people have been asking for updated recipes on certain things, and this was one of them. So this is my version today. Remember, it might not be traditional or whatnot, but this is just the way that I make it. And I hope you guys enjoy. If you want to see how I made the older version of the hot cross buns, I'll leave the link right up here in the upper right hand corner and in the description box below. So although we're not going to be able to celebrate Easter on a grand scale this year because we're all quarantined, I hope you go ahead and celebrate and stay safe with your family at home, and make sure you make these hot cross buns. So in the first hot cross buns recipe that I did, I used my hands to mix it, and that was the traditional old-fashioned way. But in today's video, I'm going to be using my stand mixer. So into my stand mixer, I'm going to go in with some warmed milk, and this is about lukewarm to warm milk. You don't want it too hot or else it'll kill the yeast. And then you're going to go ahead and add in a package of yeast. As usual, all of my ingredients and the proper measurements will be down in the description box below. And once you add in that yeast, we're also going to add in all of our sugar. I'm using a combination of brown and white sugar, and I'm also using almond milk, just to let you guys know, because I don't have regular milk on hand. But you could use regular milk, you could use evaporated milk, you could use coconut milk, or the almond milk. All will give the same result. So once you finish mixing that yeast mixture together, you're going to leave it and set it aside for about 10 minutes until it starts to begin to foam up. So in my bowl here, we're going to begin working on all of the dry ingredients. So I have some all-purpose flour. So now you're going to go ahead and mix in some cinnamon as well as some ground nutmeg. Now it is up to you whether you want to use the freshly ground nutmeg or the already ground nutmeg. We are quarantined, so use whatever you have. If there's an ingredient in this entire recipe that you do not have on hand, go ahead and omit it or ask me if you could swap it for something else. And once you've added in all of your spices, you're going to go ahead and add in a pinch of salt just to round out all of the flavors in this bread. Now I also wanted to mention that you can use whatever spices you have on hand. If you have pumpkin pie spice, ground cloves, ground ginger, anything of the sort, you can go ahead and add that in here as well. Now I'm also going to go in with a fork and I'm going to mix it up really well so all of those ingredients are combined. So this is what my yeast mixture looks like after about 10 minutes of sitting. As you guys can see, it's very bubbly and foamy on the top. That's how you know your yeast has been activated properly. So once that's done, you're going to go ahead and add in a beaten egg. And if you want to make this an eggless recipe, go ahead and omit the egg. You just might have to add a little bit more milk to make up for the egg. So you're going to go ahead and mix that together, get it a little combined. And you're going to go in with some soaked fruits. Now this is the fruits that I use when I make my black cake. So these are raisins, currants, cherries, and prunes that have been soaked in alcohol. And they've been soaking for a while and I pureed them. Now if you did not have this on hand or didn't want to use anything with rum, feel free to go ahead and just add in some raisins and cherries into the mix. Or you can also soak them in pineapple juice or orange juice or something of the sort and do it this way. So once you add those fruits in, you're going to also add in some melted butter. And for this recipe, I'm not using any vegetable shortening, but if you wanted to, you could just go ahead and omit the butter and use that, or you could do half and half. And after you add the butter in, you're going to go in with some orange zest. Now orange zest is what I had on hand. If you don't have it, you can omit it. If you want to add some sort of zest, you can also add in some lemon zest if you have those on hand. And I'm also going to go in with a few drops of vanilla. I really like the flavor that the vanilla adds to these hot cross buns. If you wanted to use almond essence, vanilla essence, mixed essence, or anything of the sort, feel free to use that as well. And once you add all of these ingredients in here, you're going to go ahead and mix it up, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So I have all of my wet ingredients in my mixing bowl here, and I find it easiest just to mix all the wet ingredients and have your dry ingredients ready to mix everything in afterwards. So once you have them in there, you're going to begin adding that flour mixture in about 2 segments. The reason is because sometimes as you're making this dish, you might find that you might not need to use all of the flour, or you might find that you need to use more flour, just depending on the brand of flour you have and the humidity that's around you. Remember, anytime you're baking, the measurements may vary just slightly, just because of the conditions that you're in. So I've added in half and I've put on my mixture on the mixing speed, and I'm going to allow it to go until I see this flour is properly incorporated. So after adding in that first set of flour, you're going to go ahead and add in the second set of flour. And basically what you're going to do is mix it all together until you don't see any dry flour in the bowl. And then you can determine from there if you need to add any more dry flour or if it is ready for kneading. All of my flour has finished mixing into my hot cross buns dough, and as you guys can see, it looks very sticky and very tacky in my bowl, and this is exactly what you want. The reason why you want such a soft dough is because you want a really fluffy and soft end product. You don't want anything that's too dense or too hard in the end. And I find that when making hot cross buns, it's a little different than when making regular bread, I guess because it has those fruits inside, which tends to weigh down the flour a bit. So this is what you want, very sticky texture. Basically what it needs to do now is it needs to knead. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it in my stand mixer here, and I'm going to allow it to mix on the mixing setting for about 5 to 6 minutes, or until most of the dough has gotten cleaned off of the sides of the bowl and it looks nice and smooth and it is not super tacky anymore. Once your dough begins to look like this in the stand mixer, that's how you know that it is done kneading. It looks smooth on the outside and it's only sticking at the bottom, but that's totally fine. We'll go ahead and scrape it out. And if you wanted to, of course, you could do this in a mixing bowl. However, it will be more arm workout, but I guess it'll just be a little more effort to get your hot cross buns. So once you finish mixing and kneading this, you're going to go ahead and just check it out, make sure it's nice and smooth, and once it's like this, it is ready to be rested. Once your dough is finished mixing and it's nice and smooth, you're going to go ahead and put it down onto a floured surface. You want to use a good amount of flour as you are putting this on your board or whatever surface, because it is a very sticky and a tacky dough, so you want to be careful so you don't make a mess. So I'm going to go ahead, put the flour on, and I'm just going to knead it a little bit into the dough so this way it's not sticking all over the place. And once you get it into a nice round ball, we're going to go ahead and put it into the same bowl, or you could put it in another bowl, and we're going to cover it with plastic wrap, or you could put a damp paper towel and a kitchen towel over it, just so it doesn't dry out. And we're going to allow it to rest for about an hour to an hour and a half, or just until it has doubled in size. So this is my hot cross buns dough, and it's been resting for about an hour and 15 minutes at this point, and it has doubled in size. Now this is exactly what you want it to look like, nice and smooth on the top. It looks nice and glistening. That's because of the butter on the inside of the dough. And basically what we're going to do is sprinkle a little flour over the top of this dough just to help me get it out of the bowl. And once you get it out of the bowl, you're going to put it again on your floured surface, and we're going to begin to split them up into balls. So when I'm working with any type of very sticky doughs, I like to work with one of these bench scrapers. You can also find the dough scrapers, the plastic ones, in your local home store or any cooking aisle of any store really. And basically what you're going to do now is you're going to split the dough into the desired amount of hot cross buns that you want. So for this dough, I got about 12 good sized hot cross buns, but you can honestly get 15 smaller ones out of this, or you could get about 10 or 8 to 10 very large hot cross buns. Whatever your preference is, just know that if you make them smaller, they'll take less time to cook, and if you make them bigger, they will take a longer time to cook. So once you split them up into the balls that you want, you might have to use a little bit of dry flour to help you, but you're basically going to smoothen them out. So you're going to fold it in onto each other, and then you're going to go ahead and close up the sides. This smoothening process is very similar to when I'm making roti or bake or any type of dough related dish. Basically you're going to fold it over onto itself, and then you are going to close it up using your thumb and your second finger. This just helps to make it smooth and uniform on the top, so this way when the bread is done baking, you have a nice smooth roll of bread versus something that's very cracked and craggly and rough on the top. So I'm going to continue doing this with all of my portions of dough, and as I'm finished rolling them out, I'm going to put them onto my greased tray, and then I'll show you guys what they look like before we're ready to leave them for the second rise. I've got all of my finished hot cross buns here, and this is what they look like after I've finished smoothing out the tops. And once you finish doing this, you're going to go ahead and cover it with a damp paper towel and a tea towel, just so this way they do not dry out. And we're going to allow them to rest in a warm place for another 30 minutes to 45 minutes, or just until they puff up a little bit again. You do not have to wait until they double in size, but you definitely want them to puff up again, so this way they can be nice and fluffy as they bake in the oven. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'll come back and show you what they look like when they're ready to go in. These are the hot cross buns after resting for an additional 30 minutes. And as you guys can see, they've puffed up just a little bit, and now they're touching. That just shows that they did raise a bit, and now they're ready to go into the oven. So I'm going to put them in my oven at 350 degrees and I'm going to bake them for 20 to 25 minutes. Depending on your oven and the size you make them, you might have to vary the time, basically until they're beautiful and brown on the tops. Now you want to be careful. If your oven is very, very hot, you might want to put it to 325 because since these have so much sugar on the inside, they might burn if you have the oven too high. So just make sure you monitor your heat. Now once you pop your hot cross buns into the oven, you want to go ahead and wait a few minutes, and about halfway through the cooking process, you're going to start on the glaze for those hot cross buns. Now this is that buttery, sugary glaze that you see that's nice and sticky that always glaze hot cross buns. So in my pan here, I'm going in with a few tablespoons of sugar, and I'm also going to be adding in a few tablespoons of water. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to allow this mixture to boil for just about 6 to 7 minutes or until it gets a little thick. You do not want this to crystallize on you, so be careful, regulate your heat, and don't let it overboil. And before I go, I just wanted to show you that I'm putting in a few pieces of cinnamon sticks and a few pieces of anise that I had. Now, these are totally optional. If you don't have these whole spices on hand to put in the syrup, you do not have to put them, you can totally omit it. Now once the mixture comes up to a rolling boil, you're going to go ahead and reduce the heat to about a medium-low, so this way it does not overboil and it doesn't crystallize. And we're also going to go in with a little tab of butter. Again, all of the proper ingredients and measurements will be down in the description box below, so look out for that so you can see how to put together this entire dish from start to finish. My sugar mixture has been boiling for about 7 minutes now, and after the 7 minutes, you want to test it in between your fingers. As you guys can see, it makes a thread, but it breaks easily in the middle. That's exactly what you want, or you want it to be just a little thinner. Now, if it starts to form a thread or multiple threads or starts to get too thick, you might want to start over, or you could add in some more water to loosen it. My hot cross buns were baking for exactly 23 minutes. Again, that time will vary for everyone depending on the temperature of their stove and the size that you made these hot cross buns. But as soon as they come out of the oven, when they're nice and hot, you're going to take that sugary glaze that you made and you're going to rub them all over the top of the hot cross buns. You want to make sure to do this when they're warm or very hot, so this way the hot cross buns can absorb it a bit, and so this way it doesn't totally just fall off of the hot cross bun. So I'm going to finish brushing these, and then I'm going to allow them to cool completely before I go ahead and make that white cross for the top. Now once your hot cross buns are cooled for the most part, we're going to start making that beautiful white frosting that's used to make the cross that you usually see on hot cross buns. Now if you wanted to, you could have made a flour paste and put on the buns before they went in the oven, or some people like to take a piece of dough and make a cross on top of the buns, but I much prefer to make this little frosting on the top because it adds a nice sweetness and another layer of texture to the hot cross bun. So I'm going to continue mixing in a little bit of milk at a time into some powdered sugar until I get a nice thick frosting consistency. Remember, don't make it too thin or else it's just going to run off of the hot cross buns. So you want a very, very nice consistency. And once you've gone ahead and mixed in enough milk, you're going to go ahead and start to whip it almost with whatever you're mixing it with, just so this way there's no lumps of powdered sugar left in this mixture. Before we begin to frost the buns, I did want to give you guys a little tip. What you can do in order to get the frosting piped onto the buns is take a Ziploc bag and you can put the frosting on the inside, and then you can cut a little hole at the tip so this way we can go ahead and frost those buns. Now this is a great alternative if you do not have a pastry bag on hand. I know I don't usually have pastry bags in my home, so this was what works for me. Alright guys, so I'm going to be very honest. YouTubers and chefs, they make their mistakes as well. I did not wait for these hot cross buns to cool as much as I should have. However, they did turn out perfect. The taste was perfect. That's all that matters. But as you're going to see, as I put the glaze on, some of it does run off just a little bit. That's just because the buns were still a little warm. Now, if you do not want them to run and you want this to set all perfect and nice, then what you're going to have to do is allow them to cool absolutely completely. So I'm talking about 30 minutes to an hour to allow them to cool. I only waited about 20 minutes. That's why they were still a little warm. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to take your filling and controlling your hand very well, you're going to go ahead and draw stripes all over the tops of them, so this way you can make the cross shapes. Now a lot of people, they make the shapes a bit differently, but this is just the way that I make it. Go ahead and frost them however you want to with this frosting. I went ahead and I took one of these beautiful hot cross buns out of my pan, and I just wanted to show you how beautiful it looks on the outside. It's golden brown, has that sweet sugary coating on the outside, and it has that beautiful frosting cross on the top as well. And I just cut it open to show you guys what it looks like. It's super fluffy, super soft. You can see some of those fruits peeking out at you. And this is the reason why I like using those grinded up soaked fruits, because it makes the bread extra moist, being that there's alcohol in it, and it also does not have huge chunks of fruits in the hot cross buns. I much prefer my hot cross buns to be like this, but by all means, if you wanted to have whole fruits in it, you can omit those soaked fruits completely, and you can go ahead and add in your whole raisins, whole cherries. Some people chop up some prunes in there, or currants, or any type of dried fruit really. So whatever floats your boat, whatever you have at home, being that we are quarantined, use that up. Do not go to the store just to go ahead and make these, or just to pick up 1 or 2 ingredients for this dish. So I hope you guys enjoyed my quick and easy hot cross buns recipe. I hope you enjoyed this updated version of the recipe. Again, if you want the old version, it'll be down in the description box below, and you can go ahead and pick and choose which one you want to try this Easter. So I hope you enjoyed. Go ahead, like this video, give it a nice big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed yet, and if you click that bell notification icon right next to the subscribe button, you'll be notified when I post my newest videos. And of course, keep leaving those awesome comments down below.